evening, everyone. Good evening, fellow board members. Heather and Mark Stepek are both running a little late. I'm sorry, Jenny and Mark Stepek. Mark Stepek is our secretary, so we need a motion. Yes, sir.
I move to appoint Heather Schaefer as secretary for this meeting.
Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Heather, for doing that. Would you please take attendance?
I will. President Donnelly.
Here.
Vice President Dr. Brazington.
Here.
Treasurer Guthrie. Currently not here. Secretary Stepek. Currently not here. Trustee Bailey.
Here.
Trustee Schaefer. Here. And Trustee D'Alessandro.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. Any changes to the board agenda?
None.
All right, we move on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from November 27th, as well as an employment recommendation. Would someone like to make the motion? Mr. Bailey.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support? Dr. Brazington? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Prearranged request to address the board. We have some recognition to do today.
Yeah, Mr. Donnelly, we're going to start off with Clear Lake, and Mr. Bigelow will be introducing some students. We've all the buildings have pretty much got quite a few students, as you can tell, tonight for recognition in the arts, athletics, and academics. So, Mr. Bigelow.
Well, good evening. Grab the mic. Thank you. Well, good evening. Extremely grateful for the opportunity this evening to recognize these two fifth grade students, both of whom I know we're going to miss tremendously at Clear Lake in the next few months when they leave us and head to the middle school. The first student I'd like to introduce is Parker Meissen, directly to my left. This is the second year in a row where Parker has helped organize a school-wide initiative. This year she helped organize a water bottle drive at Clear Lake for an elementary school in Detroit. Due to some complications with delivery, the water ended up going to the Oxford Orient Fish, where Parker was able to make the delivery with a couple of classmates and with the help of Mrs. Meany, all the while learning about the work that takes place there. All in all, they delivered over 300 bottles of water, or about 10 cases. In addition, I just have to say, Parker wanted to volunteer in a lower L classroom, but they were having difficulty finding a time that worked. So one day each week, she's giving up her recess time, and she's going into a classroom, and she's providing some math support and reading with some kids. So just extremely proud of Parker. The second student I'd like to recognize is Ms. Zoe Kerber. During the most recent IB unit, Zoe went out of her way exploring her own ideas and thoughts, all stemming from the central idea of the IB unit, which was called The Expansion of Knowledge Facilitates Discovery. She researched videos and topics of life in the past versus the present. Zoe then went on to create a poster and verbally presented her learning to the class and left her classmates with a question to ponder and think about at the end. Her teacher shares how creative and engaging the presentation was. So congratulations, Zoe.
Next up is Mr. Boyd, principal of Daniel Elementary.
Good evening. Thank you for having us today to recognize two students from Daniel Axford Elementary for taking action to support the education of kids throughout the world who may be confronted with poverty, discrimination, or conflict. these second graders, Tatum Moore and Sydney Patterson from Mrs. Collins' class, were inspired by a book they read in the classroom. They learned that education offers children a ladder out of poverty and a path to a promising future. But about 264 million children around the world do not have the opportunity to complete school. Tatum and Sydney research an organization that helps provide an education to children that may not have that opportunity. They approached Mrs. Collins and I about raising funds to support these children. Through their leadership and action, we have a Hat Day fundraiser at DA this Friday to support the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. All funds collected will be used to support UNICEF USA education. Great job, girls.
Just reversed it. There you go. You guys are on. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Next up is Lakeville Elementary, Mrs. Gwynn.
Thank you so much for having us today. It is a real honor to be here with you to acknowledge some amazing students at Lakeville. Today I have with me Max. He's a third grade student. Ms. Moran states about Max. He exemplifies principle. He's a true leader in his classroom each and every day. He leads in a kind and gentle way. For example, when students are talking out of turn, he will politely give them a quiet signal instead of trying to be bossy or showy. Max is an exemplar student with self-management skills. During any downtime, Max finds ways to stretch his learning or cram a few more minutes of his favorite book. Max makes principled choices even when there's no one around to keep him accountable besides himself. He keeps himself engaged, pushes his thinking, and continues to support and encourage all of his peers. Ms. Moran wants you to know, way to go, Max. That you'd like to acknowledge. Sorry, Max, 1 second, okay? I tried to fit in her suitcase, but I just wouldn't fit. She went to Mexico today. So we have here, on behalf of Sophia Ybarra Fernandez, Mr. Ybarra. So Mr. Ybarra, if you could wave and be acknowledged. We decided to take a little bit different take about taking action. We selected some students that take action each and every day by what they do, how they act in school, and they just basically just do the right thing. Sophia is one of those little first graders that is wise beyond her years. She is an old soul, a definition of an old soul. She speaks fluently 2 languages, Spanish and English, and she's helped me out on so many occasions. Translate if there was a small issue on the playground, she works as my interpreter. She truly is wise beyond her years. Her teacher, Miss McDonough, states, Sophia truly has a heart of gold. She is naturally kind and caring to each and every day. She maintains a positive attitude with everything that she does and everyone who she meets. She truly does. She's an amazing role model. She's always doing the right thing. Always. She always makes good choices, and she always treats others with respect. Sophia possesses a wisdom that is truly beyond her years. So when Sophia sees this on video, way to go, Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is Leonard Elementary and Mr. McDevitt.
Hi, I have 2 wonderful students to introduce you to today. The first one is a 3rd grader from Mrs. Huda's class, Roland Moore. And Roland has a very interesting story that brings him here today. Roland had a speech IEP for his R sound. He only had his IEP for a year and made incredible progress in a very short amount of time. And he was able to decertify last month. Shortly afterward, he found his speech teacher in the hallway at school. And Roland let her know that he wanted to help other students with similar speech problems. Mrs. Schneider has since set Roland up to work with some of her students. Roland stood out this year for his enthusiasm for school, self-initiated action, and for using his strengths to help others. I also have Riley Jones here. Riley is a 4th grader in Mrs. Crosby's class. And as Riley explains, a couple of years ago, she had a day where she had a hiccup with a friend and found herself without someone to play with. Reflecting on that day, she shares, was a time she felt alone. Not knowing who to play with, Riley looked around the playground and noticed a classmate who also has social challenges, all alone. She then realized he must feel left out all the time. It was at that moment Riley went over and offered her friendship. Her classmate was so excited that he gratefully accepted her friendship. From that moment, they have been close friends. Additionally, Riley's friend is sound sensitive and has a difficult time with noise in the lunchroom, so he eats elsewhere in the school. Riley joins him on several days of the week. Riley's actions extended their friendship, and presently this student has a good group of friends he can count on. Riley shows empathy in the true meaning of the word. She's able to understand another person's perspective. She's able to see herself in others and shows empathetic concern. Best of all, Riley's friendship is one that does not enable weakness, but strengthens and celebrates differences in the human spirit. Riley Jones.
Next up is Oxford Elementary School with Mr. Brown.
Good evening. Congratulations to all the winners tonight. That's a very tough act to follow, and those were some great stories to hear. 9 months ago at Oxford Elementary School, we started doing our Student of the Month program again, and I am pleased to announce maybe our only brother and sister combination of the evening, Peyton and Caden Canham. But in the 9 months that we have been doing the Student of the Month, they have each won at least 4 times. Peyton thinks that she may have won 5 times. The way we select Student of the Month is they're voted on by an audience of their peers within their classroom, and there are no rule about being selected multiple times. And so we use the learner profile words as our theme each month, and the kids in their classes keep selecting them for doing very amazing things. And I just wanted to share one example of some of the things that they're doing that gets them recognized within their class. Caden has a student in his class who is wheelchair bound and who is not able to go outside for lunch. Caden makes the choice to join him for lunchtime to hang out at recess. And as you can see, as they're dressed right now, they're both headed to basketball practice when they're done here. And I point that out because Caden is an athletic kid who loves to be outside, but he's choosing to spend some of his lunchtime inside, making it a little bit more comfortable for another student. And just kind of one example of the cool things that they're doing within our school community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next up is Oxford Middle School with Mrs. Beasley.
Hello, everyone. I've only brought 19 of our best here tonight. In the fall, we have auditions for All-State Choir, and Mrs. Flynn, our choir teacher, works with any student that's interested in trying out. And this year, I think it's a record number, we had 10 students make the All-State Choir, so I'd like to introduce them to you. They will be performing, they have been practicing, and they will be performing at the music conference in January in Grand Rapids. And so they've been working hard and they continue to work hard. So we have Lainey Chasen, Anna Feltrin, we have Jordan Gill, Caitlin How are you? This is Serena Pointer. I always mess up her name. I've only known their family forever. But this is Amani Tenoro Pinter. And this is Sophia Ziegler. Before I present her to you, I want to say one more thing about Sophia. She will be performing at the All-State Choir in January, and then she will be packing her bags because this is a student who is going to be traveling to Germany second semester, and she will be studying in Germany. She has some family there, and in a partnership with OVA, we will be continuing her classes. She'll be working very hard in her geometry, ELA 9, and Spanish classes. So it's a great partnership with OVA and Oxford Middle School, and Sylvia is going to make us proud in Germany as well. We also have some students, and we're going to continue on the musical route here. I've got two students who have made the All-State Orchestra and All-State Choir, or excuse me, band. And tonight, Nora Chappa is here. She plays violin, and I believe Mr. Rushing's not here, but I don't know of any other student that's made the middle school or All-State Orchestra. And so this, I think, is our very first, and this is Nora. And our lone All-State band member is 8th grader Nathan Farachu. He is a trumpet player, and he couldn't be with us tonight. Next up, I'm going to recognize some of our fall athletes, and we have a couple coaches here tonight. Mr. Cady is one of our cross-country coaches, and Mrs. Oliver is another one. And we have a star-studded Oakland County boys team this year. So I've got some students that I'd like to introduce to you. These are not only the conference champions, they're also the Oakland County champions. How many teams were at that meet in Huron Valley? 30, 40, 50. There were 75 teams there. And, no, I don't know. There were a lot. I don't know. I'm looking for the coaches. About that, Jason maybe said about 75. So, and the first student that I'd like to recognize, this is Xavier Clark. He's an 8th grader. He's been before the board before because he is one of our 7th grade champions last year. He's made the record board. Xavier at the Oakland County meet lost by a fingernail or a hair. I don't even know. It was something so small. And he continued to work through the season. And at the conference meet, he beat that same runner who beat him by just a hair by 27 seconds. And so he is our conference champion. And these are all of our boys were conference champions. And like I said, Oakland County champions this year under the direction of Mr. Drodnich, who couldn't be with us here tonight. So Xavier Clark. Delamanta. Also has been in front of you before as a 7th grader. He's now an 8th grade leader. Alex MacArthur. This is Gavin Poppy. And we have Dylan Stone. And this is another 7th grader, Jack Bowman. And last but not least tonight, this is a student that has been in front of the board in the spring. This is Addison Lester. She led our girls team this year. They were second at the conference, and I believe maybe fifth. She led our girls team to maybe a 5th place in the Oakland County Championships. And again, we'll be heading on to our outdoor season soon, but before she heads off to high school. But another great leader to our cross-country program. That's it.
This is Mrs. Schell. She'll be introducing the students from OVA.
I'd like to introduce Maddie Madeline Wellagora. I do need to put my glasses on. because this is pretty important. Madeline Willimore is a 3-time member of the USA Junior Olympic National Team. Maddie signed a national letter of intent to compete for the University of Alabama Gymnastics team. She has been a member of the All-A Honor Roll throughout her high school career here with Oxford Virtual Academy. This is really cool what her coach has to say about her. Maddie is an incredible athlete, unbelievably kind, humble yet a fierce competitor. And her mentors at the Virtual Academy have just talked about how gracious and her writing skills and able to keep on pace while maintaining such a incredible pace with her gymnastics career. So congratulations. So I would like to introduce Mr. Alex Lundy. Alex is a student at OSEC. He has been a very successful 100% online student. In fact, he has been with OVA since 5th grade. Before transferring to OSEC his freshman year, he is active in robotics and NHS, National Honor Society. This semester at Macomb Community College, he was officially recognized and commended by his professor, and I'm quoting, as having an eagerness to learn, a willingness to work diligently. Well done, Alex. Congratulations.
And I'm here with Megan Boren, a third year or a junior. Not only has she excelled in her college courses this semester, but also stepped up as a bully buster. And what's awesome is she's going to get to continue her soccer career at Saginaw Valley in the fall of 2020.
By the way, that was Mr. Suckley.
Oh, sorry.
Counselor / coordinator at OSEC. All right, Mr. Wolf is up next, and he will be introducing the Oxford High School students.
All right, good evening. Up first for the art side, I have our dance company of our dance conservatory. So I'm going to call out the 7 young ladies here. If you guys can, are we going to wave or are we going to do something sassy? When I call your name. Alexa Mervosky. Carla Zawatsky. Not here today, Grace Kitchen. We have Megan Vernier. We have Allison Zardas in the cheer outfit. And we have Hannah Valley. And we have Sierra Bell. On November 17th at the Oakland Dance Festival, these young ladies had an opportunity to get coached up by a lot of different groups, a lot of choreographers, a lot of college folks, and that was at Harrison High School. Part of that learning opportunity for them was also competing, and in the adjudication process, out of 70 different groups that were there at this clinic, we were ranked number 1 out of 70 different groups and schools. Round of applause. It's the second year in a row we've received this honor, and we're going to be performing at a college showcase as one of 3 high schools that were selected. And this is a great opportunity for our ladies because they get to make connections, they get to meet other choreographers, they get to learn quite a bit in addition to the great work that they're learning from Miss Katie Stavropoulos, our Dance Conservatory Advanced Instructor. So, round of applause. Excellent job. Come on up and get your award here from...
And ladies, all come up at one time, because we're not sure we have them in the right order. So we want to see each and every one of you. I'm going to come around. Congratulations. Great job, you guys. You guys were off. Great job. Great job. All right, now, Megan. Allison. Grace. Hannah. I'm glad you guys didn't come up in the... Alexa. Sierra. Guys, thank you. You rock. Great job.
Finishing up our arts section at the high school, we have 3 students here, Nick Trush, Tyler Dolinsky, and Nadia Smith. And going backwards, Nadia is in our orchestra, and she plays the viola. She has been named to the orchestra section of the MSBOA All-State, so she's been selected at All-State this year and has done an outstanding job. She was accepted and nominated from auditions that took place in October. And as a part of that, in January, they're going to come together and the Michigan Music Conference, work with conductors, get some work, some expertise, and then there's going to be a performance on that last day at the Michigan Music Conference on January 26th. So Nadia will have that opportunity, and we're really excited for her to be able to do that. So. Okay, we have Tyler Dolinsky, and Tyler as well auditioned in October and was selected MSBOA All-State as well. He plays the trombone, and he is also in our jazz band and our concert band. And I believe, Tyler, you were selected for both, correct? Yeah. Okay, and this is your 2nd year being selected to All-State, which is a pretty big honor, pretty hard to do, because you're composing and you're doing your audition in front of a lot of different college professors and other conductors, and so a lot of pressure, a lot of eyeballs on you. And he stepped it up for a 2nd year in a row here. He is going to Central Michigan University to go into jazz studies and music education, so we got a future Mr. Jim Gibbons here ahead of us. Tyler was also asked to perform at the CMU Honors Band. And Tyler, when does that take place?
November 10th and 11th, I believe.
November 10th and 11th, okay. So we are really proud to have Tyler on board. Represents us quite well. Round of applause for Tyler. And Nick Trush as well was selected for CMU Honors Band, which took place on November 10th and 11th. Again, he auditioned in front of a lot of college professors to be selected and given that opportunity. And so he loves that feedback. He loves the recruiting process. And what he loves most about Oxford High School is the athletic events and the environments that you get to be a part of, help perform, and that environment he helps to create. So we have another all-star CMU future, possibly future college student on our hands here. So we're really proud of Nick. All right. On the academic side, we have Paige Palmer and we have Mackenzie Miller. And I'm just going to dive right into the stat sheet here. I got the starting lineup here with the all-star team. Paige Palmer, here are the stats. All straight A's. Not just this year, but ever. She's never not gotten an A. She is in AP Stats. She is in AP Physics. She is in AP Lit. She is in IB Math. And she is also in our symphony orchestra, plays the violin. She has, through audition only, been selected into the youth orchestra as the first violin section. She is involved in Girl Scouts. She is a Gold Award winner with over 80 hours of service through her project. And so, out of all the stats I'm going to give, including a nearly 4.1 GPA and a SAT score of 1460, out of all those numbers, out of all those figures and those stats I gave you, what's pretty exceptional about Paige is she is a very well-rounded young lady who works her butt off. Very dedicated, great kid. She wakes up every morning, before most students, and she attends morning scripture study class at 6 a.m. before she even steps foot into all those AP classes, which she rocks out. She is accepted to University of Nebraska, Iowa, Ohio State, Temple, Michigan State University, and she's waiting to hear back from Brigham Young University, looking to go into actuary science. She is a part of our National Honor Society, and what she likes most about Oxford is the amount of choice and the opportunity of the courses and programs we have. And that's only the one one paragraph of the 14 that would help me write up. So, there's a snapshot of Paige. Very well-rounded young lady. So don't focus on the numbers. Focus on all the hard work she's put forth in her time at Oxford High School. And last but not least, Mackenzie Miller. I'll go right into the stat sheet as well with Mackenzie. She is a IB diploma candidate, our most rigorous program here at the high school. She as well has straight A's forever, never not had an A in a class. She is in IB Physics 2, IB History 2, IB English 2, IB Math 2, IB Visual Arts, my favorite, IB Theory of Knowledge. Mackenzie is also really well-rounded and also works her butt off. She said, well, I don't know if I can make it on Tuesday, Mr. Wolf, because I tutor a middle school student on Tuesday, so I don't think I'm able to make it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You want me to call and see if I can get you out of that? She's like, no, I'll see what I can do. She's vice president of our National Honor Society, and as such, she organizes a tutoring portion of that. So she is a multi-sport athlete, a 4-year letter award winner in volleyball, and a 3-year letter award winner in softball. She's a member of our HOSA group, which is our Health Occupational Students of America group for her 2nd year. She's in our social justice group. Finishing up on the stats, she has a 4.2 GPA. She has right now raised her SAT score from a 1460 up to a 1550. That's out of 1,600. So that puts her in above the 1 percentile of students taking that test. So just phenomenal. And you don't get that test by just getting lucky. She works her butt off. She studies hard. Very well-rounded kid. So we are very, very proud to have here represent Oxford High School. You've applied to, have you been accepted to Michigan? Or are you waiting to hear back? Because that's in February, January? In December. She has exact date. But she's looking at Michigan, Purdue, Notre Dame, Kalamazoo College. She also likes the amount of choice, but also, and most especially, the amount of support that the staff provides her here at the high school. So we are really proud to have you on board, Mackenzie.
Next up is Mr. Akron, and he'll be recognizing the high school athletes.
All right, thank you for this opportunity. This is one of my favorite presentations to do all year because we get to honor our athletes, not for their athletic achievements and what they do on the field, but we will be honoring a couple of those athletes, but mostly for what they do in the classroom, for the success that they're having in the classroom. Being an athlete and juggling your schoolwork and going to practices is a huge responsibility and a lot for these young men and ladies to take on. So what they're doing is unbelievable. I'm going to honor 2 academic all-state teams that are here today. First, we're going to start with boys tennis, and they are an academic all-state team. They have to have a team GPA of above a 3.25. And again, to do that, go to all your practices, your weightlifting, and all the other responsibilities that you have is remarkable. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you guys. We have Nolan Cucci. Chase Meyer. Cameron Mumbrew. Lauren Opolewski. Gabe Smith. Trevor Wallace. They were one of 22 teams selected in the state of Michigan, so it's a remarkable accomplishment. Next up, we have our volleyball team. To be an academic all-state volleyball team, you have to have a team GPA of a 3.3 or higher. And their team GPA was a 3.78, which is unbelievable. These are the representatives tonight. A lot of them are playing club volleyball, so couldn't make it tonight. But we have Kelly Schnern. I'm sorry. We have Mackenzie Miller. Maddie Weiss. And Alyssa DeTone. So now we're going to get into some of our athletic achievements this year. We're going to honor our swim state qualifiers. You guys can come on out. Coach Jackie Rank is going to speak on these individuals.
Hi. Last year we were league champs. This year we moved up, still had a very good showing. We had 5 state qualifiers. These girls hold quite a few records on the record board, so I just wanted to recognize each one real quickly. First up, we have freshman Callie Schnur. She is on the record board in both the 200 medley relay and the 400 free relay, and she swam in both of those at the state meet and qualified for the state meet in the 100 butterfly. Then we have Jenna Fissler, sophomore. She is also part of that 200 medley relay and 400 free relay that swam at the state meet and hold the school records. She also qualified in both the 50 free and the 100 free. Third, we have Ashley Weltick. She is a junior. She holds in addition to the 200 medley relay and the 400 free relay, she also holds school records in the 200 IM, the 100 back, and the 100 breaststroke. She qualified in both of those relays as well as the 200 free, 200 IM, and 100 back at the state meet. She was all league in the 100 back and 11th in the state. And then last but not least, we have senior Kira Beltigian. She holds the school records in both 6 dives and 11 dives. She holds the pool record in both 6 dives and 11 dives. She holds the OAA blue record for 11 dives. She was all league this year in diving and took 3rd in the region, and she will be part of the signing ceremony in February. She will be diving for Division I Eastern Michigan University. Thank you, Board.
We also had 2 state qualifiers from our cross-country team. Coach Norm Peterson is going to speak on JJ Baggins, who's here today.
Good evening. We had a great cross-country season this year. Our girls were 5th at regionals, the guys were 4th. We had a lot of great performances, including Mr. JJ Baggins here. He was all county, all league, qualified for the state meet, and ran the 5th fastest time in the history of our school at 16:11.
Thank you.
Please, because I know everybody leaves, right? It's like dinner time. I just wanted to make a comment because I see a lot of faces that I don't recognize. A lot of younger folks that are coming through. And one of the things that we're always challenged by as a board is how do we spend our money? What do we do? This is a testament to how we've invested over the years. We've invested in so many different opportunities. We had the younger kids that came through. They are living the IB model. They are doing for others before they do for themselves. And for somebody that's been around for a little while, it is truly heartwarming to see when kids do that. So it's all because of the parents. So before y'all left, I wanted to let you know that we only can do so much. You do way more than we do with your students and your children. So you all should give yourself a round of applause.
So parents, you are more than welcome to grab a milk, cookie, water on the way out. Just as a side note, if by chance, and with all the students we recognize, there's probably a good chance that we misspelled one of the students' names on the certificates, just let us know and we'll give the correction. All right? So thank you. But you're more than welcome to stay or leave. It's up to you.
You guys are funny for yourself. I'm getting this cake out of here. Stimmt ja kein
Foundation's gonna stay.
All right, board members, we turn to agenda item number 5A. We've been working on superintendent evaluation, and we have a motion before us. Yes, Dr. Brazelton.
Move to approve the November 27, 2018 superintendent year-end evaluation.
And is there support? Jenny? Thank you very much, Jenny. Discussion. One of the things I'd like to do, by the way, thank you for the hard work. My goodness. But the capsulizing paragraph, I think, needs to be recorded this year. This is the board's comments on our superintendent's achievements and his evaluation. Tim's highly effective performance rating serving as superintendent of Oxford Community Schools in 2018 is evident in many ways. First and foremost, he is a champion of and for the district. Tim projects and promotes a positive image of Oxford Community Schools, improved student performance data, positive survey data from all stakeholders, increased student enrollment, positive relationships with community leaders, growing fund balance, increased student opportunities, successful sinking fund campaign, and the processes and systems that have been created or improved upon collaboratively under his leadership are all indicators of a highly effective superintendent. So we thank you. Great job. Any other comments?
I just want to thank Dr. Brazelton for taking the time and compiling all of our comments and emails to make sure that it was put in such a very appropriate synopsis of what we feel as Tim is providing our students and our staff in our district.
Can't agree more with that. Anything else? All right, very good. Discussion's over. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Your review carries. We have an update on the land purchase.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring the board up to speed through our lawyer and various vendors, architects, engineers. We are moving as fast as we can. I felt like I didn't want to go through tonight without at least letting you know that there is a possibility that we may not close by December 31st. It's not due to a lack of I don't know, time and energy and effort on our part or the people that we have engaged to act on behalf of the district. It's just there's a lot to do in a very short period of time, and I don't want to make any mistake that either myself or the district would regret in the long run. And so we're going to continue to push forward, but I felt like I needed to at least give you an update and let you know that there is that possibility. We're redoing some of our surveys and some things, and we want to make sure that we're extremely thorough in all matters. So that's my update.
Will our purchase agreement date still be impacted, or can we extend that just so you have the time? I think our original motion for the purchase agreement was like sometime around December 27th.
Yeah, so your approval, the way that I understand it, your approval of the purchase agreement gave myself authority to act upon that, even if it did extend behind that date. While we put that date in there as our target to try and have it completed, I think Sam and I had ensured that through the lawyer to make sure that we were okay, and we are. I will definitely keep the board up to date as we move forward, and whether we'll actually be able to sign it by then or not, but either way, I'll let you know over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Is that going to do or affect the selling price or any tax burden or changing any?
It could, but if anything does change, you'll be the first to know, and I won't act on it unless I feel like I've got your authority to do so.
Anything else?
Real quick.
Yes.
So if it moved into the next calendar year though, would it need, would it need to come back to make sure that we can go forward for it, and then a later board, there'll be a later board, a different board coming in?
Right. My understanding is that we're still okay even if it goes beyond that date.
Okay.
I guess I just want you to know that, let's say that, I don't know, something happens and we're not going to be closed by that date, and the seller comes back and says, well, you didn't meet your deadline, and therefore we want to change the agreement. At that point, I would be coming back to the board and saying, are you guys okay with this? Are you not okay with this? While I believe that I have the authority to act, I wouldn't do that unless I had your permission to do so.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that update. Curriculum and instruction, Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, we're going to be presenting on our MTSS with the assistance of Ms. Kanja, soon to be Mrs. What was it again? Collins. There we go.
Possibly, I might say Mrs. Kanja. That could be determined. Do you want me over there to go first?
That's fine. All right, we're good. MTSS is and you can kind of read the definition above me. It's really about helping the children that are, how to explain it, in need of quite a bit of assistance. Usually your bottom 30% in a class is usually who you're focusing on, sometimes upwards of maybe 40%, although it could be other children that are even above that, depending on the need that's demonstrated by each child. One of the things that has changed over the time is MTSS has come to include, it used to be RTI, and it's really the process that occurs before a child may qualify for either a 504 or for special education services. So this is kind of the things that we try to do to help the child out, fill some gaps, address some issues, and it occurs in all areas with the child. It could be reading, it could be writing, it could be math, it could be social behaviors as well too. So we try to address the whole needs of the child and trying to address what area specifically may be holding them back from learning. Okay? Now, MTSS is divided up into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is your basic classroom instruction. That's basically what the classroom teacher does on an everyday basis, and it may involve some evidence-based Tier 1 interventions in the classroom that the teacher is providing. It may be provided to larger groups of students all at once, or it may be on a little bit smaller scale sometimes.
But these are things that you're, every day, if you were to walk into the classroom in Oxford Community Schools, we would hope that you would see teachers evidence of this, of differentiation and other strategies to help the child succeed. Tier 2 are those services that are supplemental, that enhance the basic curriculum. So these are things where you may have a paraprofessional or a reading specialist, a school psychologist even. It could be a myriad of people either pushing in or pulling out services to help support the child. So it was deemed that beyond the basic intervention, that there was an added need that was demonstrated, that we would then need to elevate the child to a tier 2 intervention at that point. And then the last is tier 3. And it is very intense and usually requires a small group, usually 1, maybe 2 children. And it is usually one-on-one with the instructor, and it tends to be where they're being pulled out of your tier 1 instruction somewhat. And they are getting specialized instruction at that point. This is not special ed yet. And so for a child to eventually progress to special education, we would like to see them go through the different tiers before we get to the end result that we then look for an evaluation. Now sometimes there are needs for children that are obvious and that necessitate jumping right to the end and maybe looking at certification right away. Now, I know. Not at all.
So the next slide, I'll kind of highlight the elementary programming within Tier 1 education. I will say that for us, and really one of the biggest goals that I have in my position, just having kind of done like a basic inventory of visiting the schools, meeting with all the principals and the elementary team in general, is really strengthening Tier 1 education for all of our students. It's the first high quality instruction that all of our kids have access to. So our job right now, and as we move forward, and we'll talk about it a little bit more on the future side, is that we want to make sure that it's not by chance that you land in a great classroom, that is by intentional practice. And so we're really working with staff to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that if I'm misaligned, that I'm misaligning our system for our kids. So in the elementary world, our Tier 1 academics and instruction that all students should have access to are the Lucy Calkins reading and writing units of study. And I believe, Ken, the dates that are in parentheses are when they were implemented. The dreaded F word in education is fidelity. So what we're really working on is implementation with fidelity, meaning really having a strong understanding of the curriculum. If you want to deviate from the curriculum, you feel strong enough to be able to do that because you know what's coming up ahead and you know the standards well enough to make that decision instructionally. For math, we have math expressions. That was implemented in 15-16, but this past school, or this school year that we're in, we updated to the newest edition for math expressions. And so Stephanie Mimi is our math coach and has been doing a great job helping to train teachers and expand on just additional opportunities. I facilitated an early numeracy study with many of our K-2 teachers to just develop their depth of understanding in order to be able to implement math expressions with, again, fidelity. Teachers always cringe with that word, but it's so important. In science, Battle Creek Science units, those are kits that come to us. Battle Creek works really hard to align with our IB units as well. And they are recently updated with NGSS, the new Next Generation Science Standards. And world language, I say social studies. Social studies for the last few months, years, has been waiting for new standards and direction. There's been a lot of controversy with the potential standards that were going to be introduced, and so we're still waiting on that. That's an area that we probably need the most work in upon getting direction from the state and how we'll move forward with that. And then the last is the world language restructure, so phasing out Chinese and phasing in Spanish at the elementary levels.
So I went to the middle school and the high school. I got to apologize to this. I'm not used to having a partner. It's been a great start to the year. She's been fabulous. So then I plow right through her part. So I got to apologize for that. Middle school, we adopted the English language arts. We adopted MESA units, which were Oakland Schools units in 15-16. We also did Big Ideas Math at the middle school in 15-16 as well too. This was all in conjunction with the teachers. We wrote everything and we made the choices of what materials to adopt. Science, we just are in the process of implementing. Matter of fact, we will be out tomorrow working on writing the first part of their units, kind of because they just used their materials for the first time. And they've gone through one of the units, so we're going to go back tomorrow and start rewriting some of the curriculum and put it into Atlas. So I would anticipate maybe by the end of the year or at the beginning of next year, you'll be seeing some middle school science units coming forward. And then obviously, Mrs. Kanja already addressed the fact that we're still waiting on social studies. They're all tied up K-12. So as far as getting those situated, and world language restructure, we're in the process. Mrs. Beasley and Mrs. Gibson Marshall help out with that, and they had pulled out the middle school teachers because of the amount of proficiency the kids are coming through. Every year it seems like we've had to readjust the curriculum as they've been accelerated along. So they are now, and we restructured the middle school setup because they used to end on 2A. Language 2A would be like Spanish 2A. And then they would take 2B, the second half of the class at the high school. Didn't like that, so we have restructured it so they finish up completely now with 2. We were allowed to do that because of the acceleration of the middle school curriculum, and now kids are coming through more advanced. And so now they'll finish up in 2, and they will start next year for the first time in Chinese or Spanish 3 up at the high school. So now it kind of runs 3A, 3B along with their school year. So happy to kind of straighten that out, and we're working on that. High school, this year they're working on, we worked all last year looking at curriculum. They adopted a resource which you approved, Springboard, and they are working on getting used to those materials. That has been a big process for them. It's the first time they've really had an organized resource that they weren't scrapping to kind of like put together themselves. Big Ideas Math as well was adopted in 17-18 for the high school, so there's a nice continuity between the middle school and the high school. Science, we are currently under construction. We had to get the middle school done, and then we are looking at, with NGSS, blending the science units into up at the high school and creating a new course sequencing. Will look a little bit different, not tons, but we're taking first science standards and blending them into the biology and the chem and physics courses, and also we'll be introducing a physical science that will take care of some of that. So there'll be basically 2 tracks up at the high school. And once again, social studies is under construction as well too. And then once we're done with the world language at the middle school, we're working on, they'll be coming out in February, the world language teachers, and they'll be working on completing the units and restructuring the course sequences at the high school. Now, one of the reasons why this is about MTSS, but we wanted to highlight the Guaranteed Bible curriculum. First of all, just realize that in the last 4 years, the curriculum, K-12, has been under intense construction. And that causes a lot of upheaval. So the teachers' lives, their everything they know day to day has been in a constant upheaval, especially elementary where they teach, 4 subject areas. So it's been a lot. So as we're working through this and trying to, like Mrs. Concha talked about, teach with fidelity, that is the most important step that you have in your MTSS, is you've got to make sure that you have a guaranteed viable curriculum that all kids get and they receive regardless of who their teacher is. And that's what we're working on first and foremost in our MTSS. And then as well, developing the interventions and everything else that goes along with it. This is yours.
This is mine. Okay. So there are 5 elements that the state really highlights in a multi-tiered system of support. One of them being having multiple tiers, and the other one is assessment. So we have 3 main assessments that we consider. multiple times a year. So the first one is a screening assessment. We do that in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And the purpose of that is all students take that assessment, and it is kind of a flag, if you will. And so it's really a predictor of our end of the year benchmark. Are they on the track that they need to be on? And if they are, they continue on into the curriculum and they're differentiated within the class based on teacher observations. If they're not, then we move into the second column, which the state of Michigan calls an extensive diagnostic. We just call it a diagnostic, where we use either Fountas and Pinnell, MLPP at the K2 level to further kind of diagnose what specifically a student was flagged for. The screener doesn't tell us what it is, the diagnostic will, and then from there, we move on to write an intervention plan where we may plan for a 4 to 6 to 8 week intervention for a student. That could be in the classroom with the classroom teacher, it could be a reading interventionist or specialist, and then they are progress monitored. The purpose of the progress monitoring is to check the, if the intervention is working, so the progress of the intervention. So kids, we've been using FastBridge, the CBM reading. Sometimes teachers might even use aspect of the diagnostic like MLPP to check to see if students are picking up. If after a couple weeks we're not seeing growth, we might evaluate if the intervention is the right intervention. We might keep going, or we might make a change. So that's the purpose of the 3 assessments within MTSS.
What does MTSS stand for?
Multi-tiered system of support.
So the next slide is kind of like what we've been doing, what we put in place, and what I'm going to highlight is just kind of what was here 4 years ago. So if you look under elementary, we had 4 reading specialists, and we had 2 part-time reading specialists, and about 4 paras was all that we had in elementary across the district. At the middle school, basically what we had was some content reading classes and the math lab classes. The rest has been pretty much added. Mrs. Beasley has done a great job with the advisors program and sprucing that up and addressing that. So all of this stuff has been added basically. Homework club we've had for a while as well too. High school, we've added the academic labs, both in 9th and 10th grade, quite a bit expanded them. And 4 years ago they really weren't present. As well as the DEN after school program that's been for a while. Before it was funded a little bit from the tuition from foreign students. Now it is funded through at-risk funding indirectly. And we have established a restorative care coordinator who handles restorative practices. That is a huge focus with the state and making sure that these are kids that have been disciplined, that there is restorative practices offered to them, and also as well, research has shown that they are effective in preventing further discipline issues. And Mrs. Sweet helps out with this quite a bit too, and making sure too that we're following some of the tenets of the law, as well as making sure that they know and are up on practices. Mrs. Fine has been trained in restorative care practices. As a matter of fact, she's been trained to the point now where she is a trainer and can train others, and will be doing that. She's already started a group at the high school where they can use this in their classes. So there's restorative conferences, which is more of like the discipline administrator, maybe dean, meeting with the student that has been disciplined, and then there's restorative circles, which are used in the classroom to kind of maintain the classroom environment. So we're starting this here at the high school, the middle school as well, and we're going to be presenting to administrators so that they can see and maybe offer it to their own buildings as well too, to help maintain a healthy classroom environment. I mean, all the research shows out there that social emotional learning of a child needs to be addressed, and that relationship that they have with the teachers is so important, even at the elementary. And if you think back to your own schooling, you were much more apt to work for a teacher you liked than a teacher you did not. And then the last slide that I have is kind of just wrapping up. It's kind of what is school improvement, what is MTSS. I kind of like to look at it as, in general, as school improvement. Both plans are focused on growth. Both plans, but where they separated, school improvement tends to be more about the adult improvement. What are teachers doing, staff doing to improve themselves? MTSS is what are we doing to improve the students, basically. Kind of how you keep it separate. Now that's not perfect. There's not exactly a great dividing line or anything, and they do blend and cross over some. But just in general, that's how I like to keep it separate. And then the last slide is our next steps and considerations for school improvement. We've had a strong focus because they are blended, like I talked earlier about Tier 1, and that's where you really work on a lot of your Tier 1 guaranteed and viable curriculum is through the school improvement process. We are focusing on the school improvement process, making sure Tier 1 delivery is consistent and effective. We have a science coach, which we'll be interviewing tomorrow. There we go. And we are working in the process of developing a coaching framework. We have quite a few coaches now, and we're finding that in order to help them and help them get into classrooms and work with the teachers one-on-one and so forth, that we need to have an approach. It's not something our teachers are used to. Despite even having some of the coaches at the elementary level now for 3-4 years, it's still something that they are growing into and realizing that, hey, I too need to have a growth mindset and look at it that way. Another big focus is district strategic plan, which we work today on the portrait of graduate, which is one element of it, which you'll be seeing when that's ready, as well as developing the strategic plan and some of the initiatives, and I think you've seen glimpses of that in the handout as well too. And I think that's it.
All right, so on the MTSS side of things, one of the biggest emphasis for us is focusing on our practices. The first bullet point there, that Tier 1 delivery is the most important aspect of MTSS. It is the biggest part of the pyramid, and so it's important to me that we spend time on the largest factor of our pyramid. Sometimes we tend to spend time more on the intervention, but when we really think about it, that doesn't service as many students as we hope. So in January 21st, I believe, we are offering a 3-hour professional learning opportunity for all of our elementary staff, no matter what you teach, to better understand the multi-tiered system of support and their actual role in it. One misconception right now that some of our teachers have is that they think they take a kid to an MTSS team, but they're not recognizing that they're a big part of the process within the Tier 1 level, and how much they have a role in that. Some of that could be language, maybe changing it to like a problem-solving continuing, so we have to work through that, but it's really important for me that teachers really understand that their role on a daily basis is very much part of our multi-tiered system of support. Yes?
Are paraprofessionals being included in that training?
I would like them to. I think it depends on if it's a work day or, yeah.
Right. I think that would be valuable.
Especially since they provide a lot of the support intervention.
Well, because it sounds like they would be a big piece of, especially the tier 2, right?
Great.
And that transition from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3, that would be a big part of their day.
It's pretty much all their day. Yeah.
To me, they should be trained up as much as the teacher, because they're going to be the one instituting the program.
So just to clarify, the PD in January is more about the different parts of the MTSS.
Okay.
They've all been trained. We have made sure that's one thing that we have been very adamant on, in getting them trained in the actual interventions they are delivering. So we've made sure of that, but we will look at trying to include them as much as we can, because it is important for them to understand what role they play as well too.
Yeah, okay. And I'll give you an example. In January, I have 2 days with a lot of the paras and math intervention that I'm going to be working on, specifically diagnosing areas in math to intervene in and what programs they could use for that. For their work, for sure. The next bullet is, we are, and also tomorrow and Thursday are big days, we are going to be looking to hire an MTSS coordinator that is, we posted it as a psychologist position in order to really get somebody who is adept at looking at data and really program evaluation as well. We are in the process of hiring a half-time reading specialist for OE. We held our screeners last week and we have our second round interviews next week for that. There's some great candidates that I'm excited to be able to get to work on with our older students at OE. And then the next part, math diagnostic assessment. So in education, it's really easy to come by reading diagnostics. There's not a lot out there as far as math goes, so that's something that we've been really working on. Leonard has been trying a couple of different things. Clear Lake has been trying a couple of different things, and we just keep checking in with each other to see how it's going, what information are they getting. And then again, I'm going to work with some paras at a couple of those schools to see if another diagnostic would be helpful too. So along with that, we would need progress monitoring assessments. We do have some of them in FAST. We just have to take a look to see if they're going to work for us. And then creation of an early warning system between 5th and 12th grade. So we have a grade system K-4, but how do we make sure kids are not lost in translation from 5 to 6 and on, and then again from 8 to 9. So looking at indicators where we would again kind of flag kids to be monitored and to transition them up.
In some ways, the secondary MTSS gets a little more complicated because there's a lot more factors that go into the equation, whereas sometimes at the elementary level tend to mostly be a lot of academic and some social, whereas a lot of times in secondary it's flip-flopped a lot, and that the academic seems to be okay, but the social behaviors that get in the way, the executive functioning skills, organizing their time, making sure they're taking it and chunking the assignments and so forth, and pacing themselves. I mean, if you've ever had a teenage son, you probably experienced this pain, or even daughter. So that is it. I think we are done. If there's any questions?
Yes, Jennifer.
Thanks. I'm just curious about, these students take the MSTEP, the MTSS students?
Third through fifth.
They take the MSTEP. Is there anything that correlates with identifying students for the program through MSTEP performance? Or is there any data that ties MSTEP performance in this program together to show that the program's working on that level?
Basically, MTSS, because it impacts the bottom 30% to 40% of students, a lot of times you're not going to maybe necessarily see a huge leap in scores, and it takes some time for that to gather speed. I watched, and I think this is Mrs. Concha did as well too, Lake Orion did a presentation on their reading. They have been very successful. They are about, I would say, 4 or 5 years ahead of us in putting in MTSS and being more organized and a concerted approach. Because there's a lot of things, parts and pieces that go to MTSS, and you can't just do one of them. You gotta put the whole thing into practice, and you've got to really make sure you're doing like Mrs. Concha talked about. You've got to have the screeners, you've got to have the diagnostic assessments, you've got to have the progress monitoring, you've got to do all of those steps, and you've got to go through the tiers. You can't just jump, and many times we always want to jump. So we're working to put this in. But really, it does impact when it's down the road. You'll start to see the benefit. That's where really that tier 1 focus, and Mrs. Concha can maybe talk a little bit more about that, really helps to improve and look at that MSTEP performance, because that is the whole curriculum being delivered. And that MSTEP, although it's shorter tests nowadays than what they used to take with the MEP and some other variations, and even the first iteration of MSTEP, it still measures the whole curriculum. Anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that a lot of the assessments that we use, they do correlation studies. So for example, FAST, where we put our indicator or our flag, there is a correlation to the further benchmark or the end of the year benchmark that we look at with MSTEP. And so if if a district uses the MWEA, MWEA offers a similar product or report. And so one of the things that we'll probably closely monitor is, do we need to adjust our screener at the beginning of the year, or are we catching kids where we're supposed to? One of the things that I've done a lot of work with open schools recently is they really caution you against that, and if you're doing that, it really asks you to go back and look at tier 1 practice. So that number should be getting smaller, and if it's not, it's really an indication of how our tier 1 is working versus our other tiers. So that's where I'd want to go back and focus on.
Thank you very much. It sounds challenging, so it's great that
But
you're
it's
spending
awesome.
time. But it's awesome. It's worthwhile. Good.
Ken, you had mentioned earlier, I believe it was the program, the Den, where we're pulling students out. And this is not really so much a question for you, I think it's more a question for Tim and for Sam. From 2015 is really when we started to invest in these programs. A little bit in 2014, but the lion's share comes from 2015 and beyond. Ken, you alluded to the fact that that Den was financed from, a fair portion of it was financed from our international program.
Yeah.
So now our international program is 1 or 2 students, and the revenue was at one point that we were putting back into programs like these with parapros was somewhere about $400,000. Are we still able to go at the pace that we're going with these types of programs, these interventions, when we don't have that money? Are we taking that out of general fund now? Where is that money coming from? Is it all coming from at risk? I guess that's my question, because there's a lot of staff that we've added, and I don't want to contract because we've contracted revenue from one source.
So most of it is, what has happened is, as we lost that revenue from the international program, it just so happened that at-risk dollars from the state increased quite a bit. For example, the first year I took over for this position, my at-risk dollars were about $450,000. This year, they were about $970,000 or $80,000, somewhere along there.
Is that a year?
A year, yes. So, and that is all money that is got to be used in a manner that supports an MTSS system. It's right in the at-risk legislation. So that has happily coincided. Obviously, if we still had the international tuition, we'd be able to even add more, because there's a lot more yet to do. We're behind in coaching. We have just added some of the coaching positions this year, where we've taken and added another one at the secondary level. We lost Mr. Spencer from the science position. We waited to make sure that we were going to be okay with the state. So we lost that. That is very valuable to have those coaching positions. If you look at some of the other districts, some have a coach per building. Lapeer has a coach per building. So there's a lot of different things that we could have been doing with that tuition money. But you know what? We're keeping our head above water. We're doing all right. We're figuring it out. Mr. Drone and Mr. Barn have been great working with and figuring out what we can do. And as things have gotten better in Michigan, the state has increased a little bit, and they've made sure that that money has also seen its way to curriculum. We have huge, as Tony would say, also as well, building needs that are out there, and busing needs and everything else. And so and technology needs and all of this, thank goodness for the sinking fund. Put that plug in as well too. That'll help a lot of the technology, as we're also, and amongst all this, moving to one-to-one down the road at the high school and the middle school, hopefully within a year or two of that. So as we continue all these initiatives, it has been great with Mr. Throne's support and Mr. Barnes, as well as the rest of the cabinet, that we've been able to make sure that we are dividing the money up and hitting the needs that we see, and trying to address the most need first. And that's why OES on that was one of the first things. We didn't tell you that we were doing that or anything like that, creating that position, because it is a new position. But that we realized that Mr. Brown needs to have. We have the lion's share of our students going through 3, 4, 5, that 3, 4, 5 building, and they need to have somebody supporting them in the reading, because they all, as great a job as DA does, you got to also realize that's a lion's share of our K2 population, so there's a lot of kids there, and there's always still some kids that still need that support, and that expertise to address reading skills at those grade levels, 3, 4, 5. So I don't know if Mr. Drone might have something else to add.
I would just say that I think based upon our identified needs, through our surveys, through our strategic process, every year we take a look at what our greatest needs are, and we prioritize them, and then we just go figure a way out to fund it. whether it's through additional state dollars or general fund or alternative programming. Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils all down to. You gotta figure it out.
Yeah, I should, yeah, Mr. Crone's right, because a lot of this too has been helped through, we don't look at it as OVA, buildings, and everything else. With some of the shared times investments, that has helped tremendously as well too. That has allowed us to do such things, what's not even listed here was the classroom libraries, which was a huge investment. And it's a huge indicator of whether or not a child can read.
And then my follow-up to that, moving forward, you touched on a little bit, Ken, with the passage of the bond and the sinking fund, it's going to help us with our maintenance costs. Are we looking ahead for those dollars to kind of put into these programs to invest more in, not just MTSS, but all programs across the board, taking those dollars that we traditionally would spend on maintenance, and now that we're doing the repairs up front, those maintenance dollars get transitioned into the classroom, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, there is some of that transfer in that, I don't know, you can pick your department, but instead of X amount of dollars out of the general fund paying for this, if we've got new equipment, then we don't have to be worrying about taking that money and buying a new boiler or whatever. We can take that money and buy people and curricular investments and that kind of stuff. So, I would just say that's, in that early springtime, in that whole budgeting process, that's where we are trying to look at the district in its entirety. And so, you've got transportation, you've got athletic needs, you've got buildings and grounds, you've got personnel, you've got new positions, you've got new curricular, new books, things you want to buy, technology. And then you have people come and say, yeah, but man, we are just having some really big issues on the social emotional side. Boy, we could really use some family counselors. And so, that's really where cabinet comes together and says, okay, we've got X amount of requests and need. Okay, let's go back. What are our priorities? How do we have this thing planned out over the next 4 or 5 years? And just start trying to pluck them off one by one. Because the other reality too is that with all the great investments that we've done in curriculum, the other reality is you only can go so fast. You only can push so much change down. A teacher can only learn so much and turn around and teach it so fast. Even if we had, fill in the blank, another $20 million to buy as much curriculum as we need for the next 3 or 4 years, we couldn't consume it that fast. So we also have to look at it from a realistic implementation standpoint too.
Thank you.
And just to kind of finish up on that, one of the reasons why we moved so fast over the last 4 or 5 years is we hadn't done anything in curriculum for almost 10 years, 8 years, right around there for the most part. We had not adopted new resources. We had kind of taken our old curriculum, reconfigured it to IE, but we had not adopted new resources, materials, that kind of stuff. So that's why we had to move. Elementary, it had even been longer. So.
Any other comments, questions?
Are we seeing the increase in funding because the state's giving more, or we have more students involved in these programs?
I'd say both.
It's a little bit of both. Mrs. Bissett needs to be congratulated. She went through, they had a new way of qualifying kids for free and reduced funds, which are free and reduced lunch. That is the mechanism of which drives our at-risk funds. So there was a little bit of an increase there, but a lot across the state did. But Mrs. Bissett did a great job with really making sure we got about every last kid that she could possibly turn a rock over fine. So she was fantastic. And then as well, the state has dramatically increased at-risk funds. So all the districts across the state have also seen a bump and increase. And they're now funding districts that they previously hadn't been funded before. Like Troy was one of those that before didn't get it because of their status, and now at least get a little bit.
These at-risk
dollars you were talking about, that they have to pay for the lunches and stuff too.
No, the at-risk dollars, they're just generated off the number of free and reduced kids, and they said they have a set amount depending on how much they budget, and that's what drives the amount of funds they do. That's how they divvy it up across the state. It has nothing to do with paying for lunches. Now, there is a caveat in it, to be truthful, that does say that I have to set aside so much money to help support the free and reduced, but it's minimal.
They just use that as almost like the application,
Yeah, it's kind of the call.
like a pool.
Yeah, it's just to see how much the need is there, so that because it is meant for supplemental resources and addressing those kids of need. And your test scores, your MSTEP, your SAT, your ACT, just about any standardized test correlates almost one-to-one with those type of indicators. So that's why they.
So these are, and they're not special ed dollars because the kids, they're trying to get them before like a 504 or an IEP is implemented. So there's no special ed funding coming in, right?
Anything else? All right. Mr. Weaver, we have a OVA recommendation.
Yeah, that's just you had the presentation last meeting, and this is just to approve their curriculum, and
thank you. Do we have a motion? Dan?
Move to approve K-12 general elective courses and K-8 flex curriculum as presented.
Support? Mr. Bailey? Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Sam, Finance and Operations.
Good evening. We'll start off the evening by discussing our bids that we recently received last week. I'm going to introduce first Becky Timberlake, our project manager from Clark Construction, who will be with us over the next several years for all of our phases of our development, all of our series. And right now we're going over Series 1 bids that will begin again late next spring, early summer of 2019. So Becky, if you wouldn't mind me going through. I know that everyone was also shared the document here in the board book as well. So,
okay, thanks, Sandy. I handed out a packet today which is an outline of all the contractors we accepted bids from. They are all below qualified bidders. Bids were received in December 4th. We had great coverage. The back of the packet shows all the bidders we had for every bid category. And then you'll see here on the front page and the second page, there's 7 contractors we're bringing you today for recommendations for award or approval of contract. Like I said, they are all a low bidder. Clark has had post-bid meetings with all of them and guided them to make sure that they included the scope. And the scope for the Series 1, as Sam said, includes air conditioning in all of the elementary schools and the high school, as well as a new roof at most of the high school, and some carpeting and new ceilings and lights in a lot of the classrooms that we're doing new unit ventilators. Is there any questions?
Please. Have you spoken to any of the, received references? I know that low cost is important, but what about the quality of work and the people that have used these vendors in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, all of these contractors, Clark has worked with a lot over the past, 10 years, and I know actually the district has worked with several of these contractors too. So Clark has a pre-qualification process where we run them through with references, safety, financials, history of work, any, issues on past projects with owners, and we've vetted them all. So yes, there's only one contractor that we haven't gotten a lot of detail on, but he is our lowest contractor, only $86,000, and he has been working with us a long time ago. But we've had an interview with them, and they seem like they're capable of getting their work done.
Thank you.
That was actually the one that I had a question on. They just seem so radically different from the rest of them.
Yes. So
it's like, does the guy know what he's doing? Is he qualified? And this is a steel welding contracting, which is kind of important to hold buildings together.
So yeah, so it's actually not a lot of steel, and we didn't really we brought the second bidder in first, and I worked with them a lot, and they had the scope covered. They actually seemed like they had maybe more covered. And then we did bring the low contractor in because he was going back to the drawing, seeing what he missed, because he was nervous a little bit too, seeing the bid. we brought him in with IDS, and actually Sam Barner was there, and he went through everything and he had it covered. He's local, he does a lot of work in Detroit, but he's got guys local here. He kind of looked at it as like a nice job to fill in some of its slower days by running over. It's not really, excuse me, it's not a lot of structural steel. It's just some support steel to reinforce where we're putting rooftop units. So it's a lot of a couple days here, pull off for a couple weeks, couple days here. So he just provided a really great bid. There was a couple like that. There was also the drywall was substantially lower, and we vetted them, and they had all the scope covered, and same with carpet resilient flooring. So we had great bid coverage, great results.
Thank you.
That was a great question.
Thank you.
As Becky mentioned, sometimes it's not just about the lowest cost, it's about why they're going into this and bidding possibly as low as they do. This gentleman in particular lives in the Armada Romeo area, and again, as Becky alluded to, it just is a sweet spot in terms of timing for him. With this project coming up in late spring and summer, and the proximity to Oxford, along with timing and his schedule, worked out wonderful.
We benefit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Dan.
Is it typical to have, with the exception of the electric, we had 5 contractors bid that one. Most of them are 2 and 3. Is that typical, or is it just the market where everybody's busy right now?
Yeah, so I do believe it's the market. I've been struggling a little bit with electrical bidders, so that's the one bid category where I was shocked to see such great bid coverage. But a couple of the bid categories have, like roofing, for example. We had some shingle roofing, some flat roofing. Not a lot of contractors do both of those. So some of them was just kind of the scope of work, and the right fit for them at the right time. You guys got out really early for bid, which was great. So I'm actually pleased with the bid coverage, even at 2, 3, because nowadays with everyone so busy, it's difficult to sometimes get one bid.
Sure. Maybe one more.
Yes, please.
I think it's important to point out, because I think this company has done tremendous work in our community, not just for the schools, but Royal Roofing. They've done a tremendous project over at Fish, and I think they take some heat by some folks because of the work that they do and the donations that they make, but they were the lowest bidder. I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that. They're local, they're great people, they're Oxford-minded, but they're $500,000 cheaper than everybody else. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge their commitment to Oxford. And so I know they take some heat from people, but it's important to acknowledge that.
Great point. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What kind of warranty or maintenance agreement will we have? I mean, with any type of construction work, the roof starts leaking in a year from now. Is that on us? Is that what kind of warranty period? So that we're not hitting expenses a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road from some of these big expenses.
Becky, do you want to?
Yeah, so all contractors will have a 1-year, labor and material warranty, and then I know there's a lot of manufacturer warranties in the roofing, and I can't remember what they are, but I think some of them are 20 years, 25 years. But yes, there are manufacturer warranties, especially on mechanical equipment. You'll get manufacturer warranties with certain parts and pieces that are longer than the standard 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
On temperature controls, we get a 5-year support system, all the upgrades and support on it. So that's important on the building management system.
Okay. Just want to avoid, we spent all this money and now we're fixing stuff
And on that temperature controls, Conti was the low bidder for temperature controls. And we did do some unit prices because we have some work in the future at the middle school and at the admin building. Is that correct?
Mainly middle school.
And kind of once you're going one way of controls, you want to keep the same control system in all your schools. And they provided by far the least costly unit prices to do the work next year. So
Thank you.
savings for next year too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
The next item I have on the agenda is the purchase of a electronics board, electronic board, school board for the pool area. And so this is a Oakland Schools Consortium bid on this particular unit from Daktronics. And a key here, obviously, is the match, the gracious match that Oxford Bank is providing the district for the purchase, to help in the purchase of this Daktronics board. So along with that, obviously tonight and what you have in front of you and the detail regarding this Daktronics board, due to the timing, we're asking that you consider approving this evening so that we can move forward with the PO.
The PDF was in our packet? Yes. Would someone like to step in with a motion? Jenny?
Move to approve the purchase of the electronic message system for the high school pool with Daktronics at the purchase price of $65,677, which will be offset by a $35,000 donation from Oxford Bank. This purchase will be paid using the general fund budget.
Is there support? Mr. Stepek, support? Discussion? Yes.
Was Jordan involved in like the selection of this equipment at all?
Dan?
I just want to acknowledge Tim and his efforts and Oxford Bank. I think going back to playgrounds, that's the model that we set forth, and that's the model I think we should continue to move forward to. The district is appreciative of any funds that are raised by whether it be parents, community members, to better our district, and provide better playgrounds, better equipment. This is an additional large donation from Oxford Bank. I think we've done it the right way, and we've set a precedent now. I think it's very important that we continue to move forward with that. So Tim, I appreciate your efforts in setting forth a model that we can follow for years to come.
Yes, sir.
A couple things. I'm very familiar with this system as well. Run it at several pools. It's a great system, great deal. The only question that I have is looking through all of the items. I see that we've got software support. The only thing I don't see on here is a computer to run it. And I know in the past, Coach Jackie's used her personal computer.
It's part of the scoreboard.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I applaud her for doing that, but at the same time, I mean, if we're going to spend this much.
There's a brand new unit involved.
Okay. Perfect.
Good. Any other questions?
Yes.
So just for like our constituents who are either here or watching this is, a big amount of money. Can we just have the ABCs of exactly what this is? Not everybody has somebody on the swim team or knows really what this is in the pool area, or this is a lot of money to approve. So
Yep. So basically, it's a brand new scoreboard, scoring system, touch pads that go in the water, the computer to control it, the computer to put the messaging up on the screen, a whole new screen itself. As we learned last year when we did the new scoreboard at the stadium and in the gym and at the softball and baseball fields, okay, scoreboards are not cheap. I mean, they're just like crazy expensive. And Oxford Bank stepped up once again, and we are in essence giving them naming rights for 10 years to have their name up by that scoreboard. And in doing so, they're giving us $35,000 towards the purchase of it. So,
so it's really going to cost us, give or take, $30,000.
Well, there's some additional money for the total installation of this, which is not a part of your motion tonight. The reason why this motion is coming before you is that it supersedes the $25,000 limit or whatever, even though it's pre-bid, so that we know that we're getting the consortium pricing and all that. Because this unit exceeds that $25,000, we need your approval to purchase it. there are some additional components that are a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there. The total cost is somewhere around that $70,000 mark. And so, yeah, that's why Oxford Bank is donating $35,000.
So after this, all of our fields and I guess call it competition areas on our campus will have the electronic form of a scoreboard slash
All
announcement
varsity.
type of thing. All varsity.
All varsity. So like, yeah, we didn't put new ones at like the JV, softball, and
Okay.
baseball field. We didn't put a new system in the auxiliary gym. We didn't put a new system over at the middle school.
Okay.
So we've made huge strides, but I wouldn't quite say that we've got new scoreboards district-wide everywhere.
Tim, can you speak more like to the 10-year agreement that we're making with the Oxford Bank to display
Yes.
their logo, their
Yep, their
name
name. Yep.
prominently on every scoreboard that they have helped?
Yeah, so this goes back again to last year. Oxford Bank donated, I want to say roughly around $150,000, and that money went towards the purchase of the new scoreboard at the stadium, the new scoreboards in the Ian Smith gym, and the new boards at the varsity softball and varsity baseball fields. In return, in this partnership, we agreed with Oxford Bank that we would put their name up there, right? And so they've been a great partner of the district, and we wanted to, yeah, we're proud to have them as a partner, and so as a part of this agreement, we put their name up there. There are some additional things that we also included in that agreement. We send out our quarterly newsletter 4 times a year, and there is a half a page, I'll say, sort of like advertisement that's put on there. So one of those 4 editions, we put Oxford Bank information on it, right? I think we also do some other types of promotion, marketing, that kind of stuff, maybe on our website or those types of things with them. But really the permanent name of their institution with those scoreboards, that's the big chunk of that.
I think the only thing I have a concern about is that like our Oxford Wildcat signage part is like 1 foot high, and then the Oxford Bank is like 2.6 foot high. And so I'm just trying to picture like this board, and I really see the Oxford Wildcats being secondary to the Oxford Bank just based on size. And I'm just concerned about what that looks like.
So that was our best rendition of our artist configuration. I think it would be very consistent if you think about how big Oxford Bank's name is on the football field with Oxford over the top, as well as in the gyms. It's almost the exact same scenario with Oxford Wildcats along the top, Oxford Bank along the bottom.
My concern is like there's almost like, I just feel like the Oxford Bank is like 3 foot and ours is like 1 foot. Like I picture Oxford Wildcats here, and I picture Oxford Bank being that big. And I'm just wondering if there could be some give and take with that signage at all.
I'm sure we can.
Did you guys see the picture by chance? Does anyone else, any discussion? Is it only me that's sort of taking that?
No, I'm sure that they feel they're given a big chunk of change.
Yeah.
They're the only one getting money, right? Like
Yes,
Myers is, or Cross Hardware, or whatever. I'm sure that's why they wanted the sign, I'm sure.
But they want their name to be really highlighted. Sure. On our scoreboard, which I get. I do more so than the Wildcats themselves.
Tim, is that just a rendering, or is that it? Is that how it is?
That is our best guess today. I'm not saying that it is going to be exactly to those measurements or that kind of thing, but that is the best estimate or rendering that we could come up with. Again, I guess I would go back to if you look at any of our other scoreboards. I guess I don't personally think Oxford Bank is elevated so much more than where it says Oxford Wildcats.
I don't notice it outside, so it's just supposed to be this drawing that
It could be, and I'm not saying that, I don't know, at the end of the day, this one, maybe Oxford Bank is a little bit bigger than the other ones. We can certainly go back and look at that, but I don't know, I guess all I can say is that was our best guess today.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. Joyce, I think we just have to understand and realize that we're doing in the real world, back in the 1900s or something here, it's Comerica Park, it's Staples Center in LA, it's Little Caesars Arena. Let's just be glad that they put the money up there. Now we have a great way that we can see all of the data of the game, of the race. So I honestly don't have that big a deal with that issue.
And you're speaking like from a booster standpoint.
Well, really, yeah.
They paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the ultimate goal is for us to get, the scores up there, the data for the game, what down is it, whatever. And so Oxford Bank is big on the bottom. I think that's a small pill to swallow.
Yes, sir. Just one question. Why the desire for the digital? Because one concern that I have is, having been to many, many pools, a 6 foot by 14 sign is very small. When you're sitting all the way the other side of the pool, if you look at what we have now, if you look at like a Lake Orient, it's got a very large. Waterford went to projectors instead because they could project a much bigger image. When you're sitting that far across the pool, my only concern is it's going to be a very small sign. It's going to be a very small display when you're sitting across the pool to look. I mean, I know in the picture it looked very large and you can read all this, but 100 feet across the pool, 6 feet, I mean, you got a bigger display showing up right here, and we're looking at it 10, 15 feet away. Try looking even further than that wall away. That's my only concern. I mean, I know the digital is a very costly system for such a small display. Have we looked at projectors possibly, or?
Yep. So I was in constant contact with both Jordan and Jackie. I'll say the biggest benefit of going to the digital is that you have complete control over that sign. And so having the ability to highlight the winning time and making it the complete size of the screen, you have that capability. You have that custom control. Whereas if you have an old, I'll say, analog sign, the font size of your numbers, the ability to put kids' names and stuff up on the lanes, very, very limited, right?
No, what I'm talking about is a projector system, not the analog system. An actual, just like what we have here, where you can control the same thing.
I guess I'm answering that from the digital side, and that while I totally get your concern for the actual size of the screen, I guess what I'm trying to say is we have 100% custom ability to display whatever we want, those numbers, those names, as big or as small. I did not go to Jordan and Jackie and say, okay, it has to be this vendor or this product or whatever. No, I went to them. In fact, we've been working on this for months, quite honestly. And even at day one, I went to them and just said, you guys tell me what you want. What I need to know is, what's the product that you want? Because I need to know what that number is before I go out and try and raise it. I didn't tell them you have to use this vendor or this SKU or you have to look at this type of system versus another type. I didn't do any of that. I just said, you guys tell me what it is you want so I can get the number and then I can go and try and raise money. And all I can say is this is what they consistently came back to me with.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, just to kind of answer your question, when you go with the digitals like that, they're just really bright. Even though they may be smaller, they project out at you with that light, you'll see it. It really does pop, you know, when you go to those signs. Just like when you're looking at the football field down there, it just really pops. They're brighter.
No, I get that, but you take the football field, screen is how tall?
It's 25 feet wide, this one's 14. And they did calculate it with this, that you're gonna have a 1-inch high character for every 40 feet of audience distance, and no one's ever gonna be more than 150 feet away from it, because we challenged it when Tim and I did the first rendering. I'm like, dude, it's too small, you're gonna raise more money. And the header system, the truss, it's its own price. The bottom panel, it's its own price. So if you do want to increase the height of anything, it's just a la carte, board approves the price, but I think it's trying to keep it within the window of what's a really justifiable cost of a board. So we could have a taller name, but that whole arch, like I think that one's almost 9,000 if I can recall right, for just the name. So you just pay for that. So we did the calculation and you'll have 3-inch tall characters, which makes it legible at 120 feet away from it. Very bright. And I'm pretty anal about that stuff and clarity to people. So I check the box when I render. That drawing is to scale.
How big is the football one?
It's 25 feet in width.
25 feet across. And how big is this one?
14. But there's a lot shorter distance in that room than there is on that field.
Right, yeah.
So it'll actually look like it's bigger than one of the fields from the stadium. See.
Any more discussion yet? Any more discussion? You guys ready?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Human Resources.
Just one thing, just like to thank you all for approving our personnel recommendation. Kathy Diedeker has a bachelor's degree as a psychologist in psychology and a master's in counseling. Over 10 years experience coming from Berkeley. Very highly recommended from the administrators there. So we're very happy she'll be joining the OVA staff. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing from student services.
All right. Any unscheduled audience participation? Do we have any white cards? I don't think so. All right. Mr. Throne, do we have any clarifications?
Nope.
We have scheduled activities at number 12 for all of us to review. Final board comments. Ms. Guthrie.
Thank you very much. I apologize first of all for being late for our meeting tonight, and I just love walking in and seeing the lines and hordes of students outside. We have so much incredible talent in this district. It just blows me away all the time. So I think we're so lucky, and just a personal congratulations to the students who received certificates tonight, and I'm happy for all of our students. I just feel like every student has an opportunity to shine at Oxford. So you may give certificates away to very deserving students, and those who don't get certificates are also benefiting, I think, a great deal from the great education that you're getting, and I'm sure they're making really outstanding contributions in their own way. I know my son is tonight, but he's absolutely benefiting and making contributions. So thanks for giving us a chance to be part of that. I think that's a wonderful thing to include your board. I mean, to have the board do that, acknowledge students. That's the best part, right? I think we all agree that's the best part of our job, is to get to interact with students and see them excel. I'm also I'm really grateful for all of the information from Mr. Weaver and for the great presentation that we had last week about OVA. I think that was wonderful. So I just am real grateful for the curriculum developments and the fact that, that's what's developing that talent, is having such a strong curriculum behind it. And Mr. Barna, thank you for working so hard on finances and giving us those updates. So I'll try not to run right through the agenda, but that's just, I don't know, I'm really impressed with what's happened. So, not to mention the great news that you shared with us this week. I just am excited for the teachers of this district.
I don't think so.
No, I'm excited
It's a
for it.
no-fly zone.
I'm excited. Yeah, exactly. I'm just excited that we have so many great teachers, and we've hired so many great teachers. And I think the teachers that I talk to on a regular basis feel really grateful to be part of this district. So that's how I'll say that is really fantastic. We're lucky. Thanks. I'll stop here and not get in trouble.
Ms. Chick.
I want to make a couple comments about this MTSS system, because I know I always talk a lot about special education, but I think that, thank you for putting the time into this. I knew a lot about the RTI system because I had, my oldest son was in that program, and I did see gaps as a parent, step-to-step gaps, where I think this MTS system, the tier 1 to tier 2, and then the tier, I think that's going to bridge that, and I really think that's great. We can get into the developmental process and needs before a 504 or an IEP needs to be implemented. It's going to be really important for some of these kids. Just a whole different door for them. Kind of once they get into special ed, that's just a whole different road. So this is really good stuff. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I was very interested. I appreciate it. It was engaging. I liked it. And this is always, I always laugh because when I come in and there's a horde, you always kind of wonder oh, is this angry mob scene? But this is always one of my favorite meetings, and then I think, oh no, this is the student one. So this is always a favorite when they come, and I will, just a lot of caring and empathy from the little kids too. I think that's just awesome. So that's it.
Mr. Stepik.
Thank you. Well, I want to apologize also for being late. Southwest Airlines is to blame. I sat in the parking lot for an hour and a half waiting for my son. But I'm glad he's home, because he just confirmed to me that he's not coming home after he graduates this year. So he's taking a job in Arizona. So glad to have him home. But this has always been my favorite meeting too, and so I'm real. Wasn't as lucky as Jen to get here during it, to miss it, but I know it was great because it always is. So congratulations to all those kids, because it's definitely awesome. And since I was late, I don't have much more else to comment, so.
All right, sir. Mr. Bailey?
Just like everybody else said, tonight's meeting, getting to recognize a lot of the kids. To hear the stories that, giving up recess, giving up lunch, sacrificing yourself for somebody else. It's amazing. I love sitting here listening to all those stories. It's amazing. And I know the principals had a hard time picking one or two because I know they have many kids that they could have given that award to. So it was nice. The other one I wanted to touch on was getting to approve Tim's evaluation. Eric and I and Chad sat through 101 this weekend, and I don't think we realize how lucky we have it. There was probably 30 or 40 people in the class from different schools, and to hear the animosity between board members and the superintendent, and it's like we were sitting back on, you got some either serious screwed up boards, or we are just really lucky. I mean, the talk, the animosity, and we were bragging, oh yeah, we get an email every Friday. You guys don't. We get frequent text. Nobody gets that. So I think, my team at work can tell you I'm really tough with evaluations. But I think Tim's was fair and honest that, we got a rock star. We really do. And I think this community's lucky.
Well said.
Mr. D'Alessandro, about that.
Wow. Fuck away. Daisha doesn't pick between one or two. She brings 19. So make sure you thank her for us. Daisha's the best. But I said it earlier. Really, our parents, and a lot of the parents that I saw today, I don't think I've seen maybe but one or two of them, because my kids are older. They've been through. A lot of the younger kids' parents are here. That's how districts get better. By giving the message that we're trying to do everything we can with providing support at every level. And not just providing a body here or there, but really diving in deep and seeing where our needs are and spending the resources that we have, whether they're human resources or their financial resources, and putting them to the best use that we can. So Tim and the staff, you guys have continued to do a very good job at that. We had a lot of athletes that came through. They weren't always just recognized for their academic or their athletic achievements, but also their academic achievements as well. And those, think about some of these practices that our student athletes are going through. Some of them are going to work out at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, then they're going into the classroom, then they're going from there, they're going to participate in their sport, then they're getting home, and they're still 3.5, 3.74. All academic teams, tremendous. When I started on this board 6 years ago, Oxford was a much different place. We were just starting to take off. And I look back at it now, Oxford is a very much different place than it was in 2013. And in 2013, we were tremendously different than what we were in, say, 2005, 2006. Oxford wasn't even on the map. So we built it, and we continue to build it, and being innovative and doing all the things that we do. Just like you said, a lot of these districts go to these classes, and they look at each other like, and Kim Shoemaker was great because we always had the same meetings, and she said, you're raising money by having a bake sale. And we're providing funds by being pioneers in what we do and making ourselves attractive to other students to bring them from other districts, and people are starting to move into Oxford. Our virtual academy is one of the best, if not the best in the state. So just all exciting things that are going on. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the football team and their accomplishments this fall. Coach Raleigh, Coach of the Year in the OA Red. And I can tell you, I talked to a number of different parents, and boy, oh boy, their sons, some of the stories that they share with me of the character difference that they saw from them from their freshman year to their senior year. So that's a testament to the coaching staff, and it all starts at the top. And I think a school environment takes off when you have a successful fall in academics and athletics. And I think this is going to be, it's already been a very good school year. I think we're going to be very pleasantly surprised what we see at the end. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Bryson?
I'll just echo everyone else's comments. And thanks for saying thanks for me pulling this together, the superintendent evaluation. But it all came from all of our open dialogue and comments that we had 2 weeks ago. So I appreciate, just having the open dialogue. We created a great testimony of what we're doing here in Oxford, Tim's leadership. So
You do a good job organizing.
well, thank you. But again, just a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I was thinking over the evaluation process and stuff, and certainly we have a superintendent that is innovative and visionary. But one of the phrases that I've used more and more over the last year is collaborative. Because innovative and visionary, you'd still be alone. But collaborative is a way of pulling your cabinet administrators and creating a culture that starts to see things holistically. And that leads me to my last comment, that I think that whether it was the recognitions today or whether it was the MTSS presentation, the idea of the whole child, right? The two girls that have over 4.0, I'm not sure how you do that.
Yeah, both yours and mine together.
Yeah, they added ours together and got that. That was good. But then to know all the things that they're doing, right? I mean, the principals are saying, and I don't even want that to be the major thing. I want you to realize what these kids are doing in life already, right? And then you drop that back down to an elementary girl that says, I want to get water to this school in Detroit. And gosh, the whole child, right? And to have, with the MTSS, to have an individual approach to help a child get back in rhythm and get back to where they need to be. I'm just impressed, just thoroughly impressed. So thank you very much. Sir?
Okay, I've got a few things, so take a breath. I think I'd like to first start out by, so what you saw in this packet here is just, I can't tell you the hundreds of hours put in by Sam and Tony and our own people of getting down to the nuts and bolts of exactly what we want bid and what we want put out and how we want to do it. And so I think sometimes it's real easy to just say, yep, okay, this looks good. All right, let's go with it. Not realizing like months of work and time that's put into that. So
Great job, guys.
I want to
Great job.
appreciate that. Along those lines, I know Dan said it earlier too, but Dan Davis at Royal Roofing, okay, they've done, I have no idea how many roofs they've done. I don't even know how long he's owned that company. But I can tell you, there's no mistake of why he was $500,000 less than the other people who've been on the roof. I don't know, I think that's a really good example, as well as Oxford Bank, of our local community people stepping up and really helping the district. So I want to acknowledge them as well. This past weekend, we hosted the first robotics competition. And so I was trying to estimate how many people we had in that gym at one time. And so we had the whole side pulled out where people could be in the stands. And Daisha told me that she can fill that up with pretty much all the students at the middle school. And that's around maybe 1,100 students. So you've got parents up there, and there was a few holes, but so you had this whole stand filled. Then you had at least as many people out on the floor and doing the competitions, and I don't know how many people in the commons area, and so it was in the thousands, and I can't tell you how many times either parents or students either came up to me or Daisha or other people, and they were like, wow, this is your guys' middle school? Thank you for letting us come here today. I mean, they were like, okay, this is a middle school student. I don't know if I ever looked at a building or whatever when I was in middle school. You had people coming and going, and it wasn't with their head down and not paying attention. You had people coming in from 42 teams, I think. So let's just say 42 other districts. People walking in that building, like walking down the hallway, just looking and saying, wow. So besides our team and our volunteers and everybody doing what they do, I thought it was a great opportunity to showcase Oxford. So I wanted to throw that out there. Likewise, a couple of weeks ago, I met with our district, it's like our district PTO meeting. We had the presidents and vice presidents, along with the building principals, and Anita and I attended from the district side. And I thought it was a good meeting. We decided to proceed and maybe do this a couple times a year. But just another example of another group of constituents that I look forward to getting feedback from and that kind of thing. I want to remind the board that next week, so a week from today, we have our last meeting in December, but I want to let you know the meeting starts at 6:30, but please feel free to show up at 6 p.m. We're going to have some light refreshments and celebrate our board members that are rolling off. While we are bummed about that, we definitely want to show our appreciation and celebrate that as well. So even though the meeting starts at 6:30, please feel free to show up at 6 o'clock and enjoy some refreshments. I think the last thing is just I want to make a comment about the evaluation process. I'm really grateful to the entire board of the time that you put into my personal evaluation and development throughout the entire year. It does take an entire team, and so while it is my evaluation, I think it's reflective of not only my cabinet, but our teachers, all of our employees. And so I just want to thank you for that.
That's it? All right. It's time to adjourn, I think, huh? You think? Great day to be a what? Wildcat. This meeting is adjourned.